Let's talk about To Live to Sing.
Yes.
I really enjoyed this, and I
thank
had
you.
missed it in Cannes,
Oh.
so it's nice to catch up.
Yeah, well, it's also good to watch it when you're probably less tired and not watching.
Yeah,
like 6
you're right.
hours.
This was better. I really enjoyed the tone. I enjoyed the way it flows. It's so, because it's naturalistic, but then it's got these touches here and there that take you a bit out. And I love how you handle this idea of impending doom and the demolition, and I like how they work even in the sound, the work you did on the rhythm of the whole thing.
We Lucretia Martel's sound guy did the film. We edited the film in Argentina for like 3 months, and then we did 3 months of sound. It was like a master class, he's a bit of a genius. He's really good.
Wow. Okay, I wanted to ask you about that actually, because your editor is Argentinian.
Yes.
So I guess you found her first, and that's where the Argentinian connection came in?
So originally the project, we were part of the Venice Biennale College Lab.
Of course.
So that was that whole 1 year thing. So, I met her name is Anna Godoy, and I met her in Korea actually. So me and her, we had a really special night with Gaspar Noé, where we like partied with him. It was just me, her, and Gaspar Noé till like 6, 7 a.m. in the morning. So we were kind of each other's witness to like being like, we would turn around and look at each other and be like, we're partying with Gaspar Noé. It's like that thing where we kept going into deeper and deeper into this tiny little Korean town, looking for weird things that would interest Gaspar, So we had that deep connection there. But she had a film that was made for a like 1 year period that was part of the Jeonju lab. So I knew that she could edit very quickly, and so that was the first conversation, because she was one of the only editors who I knew that could actually get it done and have gotten it done. But by the time we didn't get the project lab funding, we were, I felt that like I trusted her to wanted to go, because I wanted the film to have a different rhythm than my first film, which was edited in New York. And I found myself for that film like speeding up the edit faster and faster, because it was a thriller, so it worked for that. But this one, I wanted to really show time, the passage of time, and the lifestyle of these people. So, but I didn't want that auteur kind of like snobbishness from Europe, So I felt, okay, she would be a great, it would. It's a risk, obviously, to have somebody, to edit, to bring the entire post production to Argentina of all places. But it was a good risk, because I felt comfortable with her. I felt safe in her hand. When we did the budgeting, it was about the same price as if I did it with all my friends in New York. So it was a calculated risk.
Okay. That's very interesting. And you were mentioning your previous film, Old Stone, which even though still a Chinese story, but I'm intrigued by this idea of you going to a place and sort of settling for a bit and getting a sense of the place. But this time I think you couldn't do that, because you saw the documentary first, so the idea came from that, and then you
I went
moved
there.
But it changes the dynamic of the genesis of the thing.
It was, in some way, it was kind of easier, because in Old Stone, I created a story, and we wanted to find a place. We chose the place in the end because it was my producer's hometown, so we could utilize the facility, or have as much resources as we could for the budget. But it was we couldn't find. It was hard to find people that felt part of that world, especially the main character. But this one, I knew that in China, one of the biggest problems these days is actors. So I already had actors, because I knew that I wanted them to play themselves. And Sichuan is a very fun place. They were very lively, so I knew that they would be good on camera. So then, it was the other stuff. In China, it's always a different problem. I feel like in making films in China, it really is 10 times harder than anywhere else ever tried to make a film, or know people have tried to make movies. It's just like, it's like a battle every time. So, the dynamic, yes, is very different, but every film is different in that way.
And you, I mean, of course, there's the dragon logo is there. You got the
Yeah, you have no idea. I mean, like, people see that thing and they kind of laugh a little bit, but man, like, that thing with so many people's blood, sweat, money,
Yeah.
time, heartache, you know, and it's like, it's the gold seal, you know.
Yeah.
It's really, it's very, very hard to get that. It's crazy. You
And
know,
now
too
that
hard.
you've done it, I mean, do you have any, not to talk about it, but like for you personally, do you have more of a sense of how the whole process works? Because when, like from the outside,
Yeah.
when people talk about it, and this is both filmmakers and festivals
Yeah.
too, and in the last year, as you probably know,
It's gotten harder.
It's gotten harder. So, like, do you have a sense of what changed, and or at least a mental idea?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there was a big change. You know, everybody knows about the big change. So, and it's just so subjective, right? Like in terms of, there are no. I mean, I don't want to like criticize because it's just unfortunate. It's the rule of the game.
Mm-hmm.
The rule of the game is always changing. So, I mean, as artists, you have to adapt and change. But it's frustrating because with movies, yeah, you don't know what's going to, I mean, this is the problem. You don't know what's going to work and what's okay or what's not okay. And some people can be okay with it, some people are not. You know, it depends on the time of the day and time of the month, you know, that you send it in, and can you get, and who do you know, you know, and it's crazy. So, but again, it's just like, it's a different process than anything, you know, what the filmmaker and to try to get the film to have the best life. It's just like a counterintuitive process. So both sides cannot meet in the middle, because of course the film festivals are not like, we're not going to have a particular system just for China, and China is like, we're not going to, you know, they don't care about what the international festival process is. You know, if you don't pass their censorship, you just don't pass. It's like, yeah, but it is an important part of it, because, you know, the film could have a chance to meet 1.4 billion people market, or no chance at all.
Yeah.
You know, so the bigger the production, the more risk this is. So of course it's just becomes that part of it. You know, I mean, there's a film recently that was called Better Days or something. It was banned in Berlin, you know, and I didn't know anything about the project, but apparently they went and reshot and re-edited, you know, all of that stuff just to get it past the censor. You know, to be an independent filmmaker, a young filmmaker in China is a very lonely task. You know, so there's not a warmth, you know, around you when you're doing this.
Do you think you keep doing that, because your entire career, even from your shorts, you've gone back to that, and sort of as a way of telling your stories? Do you see yourself continuing to look?
No, I think that, you know, if I continue to do this, I'll be dead by the 50. You know, so yeah, I think there are opportunities other places. I have options. You know, for me, you know, when I first came to China, I felt this is the place where I could have the most impact.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was a lot of good movies made by my colleagues in America, Canada, you know, Europe. They don't need movies in those places. But China, there was particularly some stories that weren't being told, and I felt it was my duty to come here to make it, and also for my career, it would help. You know, but now it's changing, because I feel like there's something in the middle. The distribution channel, the market, you know, is not really helping certain films reach the audience. So it's not sustainable. Like, unless I want to work, like I choose to work with big actors and choose to make a sci-fi film or a horror film that have been successful, like I can't get the budget to make it. You know, so I can't keep. You know, I already have my producer coming to me saying, you know, please make your next film higher than $2 million. And I'm like, how is that even a thing? Can you just make a good story? Like, what does the budget size have to do in anything? You know, so when that's tricky. You know, so but now in North America, I left North America because I felt that I was being, you know, I felt I was a minority filmmaker. You know, over there back then. You know, the stories that I wanted to tell, people weren't interested in. And now, you know, investors, producers see dollar signs. You know, I mean, things are changing in a good way, but certain stories that weren't being talked about are now being talked about. And and I see the I see the changes in the industry too. When I'm meeting executives in Hollywood, it's people that look like me, you know, are minorities, you know, female, like women executives, and the change is starting to come up from the ground, you know, which is, I think, is the good way to change, you know, so it's more sustainable. So I feel like now where I can make the most impact is back in North America, telling stories about the other side of my experience, which is the Asian American part, which is, I think there's a collective trauma that Asian American immigrants have suffered, and making films and making art is a way to exercise that trauma, you know. So you know, so Crazy Rich Asian is a start of that conversation, and I feel it's my responsibility to offer my discussion to that,
sure.
to be a part of that discussion, you know.
And speaking of change, and on the level of the film, where do you land on this? Because the film is built on the tension between a change that is coming, whether you like it or not, and preserving a tradition, preserving a legacy, but also the sense that change is good, ultimately.
Yeah.
How do you, so the dilemma at the core of the film, how do you
find it? Yeah. I mean, you know, there's been so many films, there's been a lot of films, you know, Jia Zhengke has made his entire career talking about the modern, and usually those films go into a fairly hopelessness place.
But I mean on an artistic level, because this is not just a society. I mean, what you have to protect is an art form,
right,
that maybe is dying, maybe it's outdated, maybe there's an obsolescence.
Well, okay, I'll just tell you the experience we had. I mean, we talked about sound before. So when I was in Argentina, we're working on the sound of the film. So in the film, there's this slow motion demolition claw that comes in with the music of Bobby McFerrin. So originally it was just the music and the claw coming in silently. But then, you know, when we were working with Christian Martel's sound designer, he was just like, oh, you know, I hear a monster, you know, behind this, like eating the buildings. Can we try that? And of course you say yes, you know, like you try it. And when they came back with this monster, I mean, I think Star Wars would have been proud of this like thing that they created. But when I heard it, I felt, you know, it's not quite right, you know, because I can hear the monster's intention is bad. It's an evil monster coming to eat the buildings, you know. I thought, what if we make the monster more ambiguous? You know, we don't know if the change that's coming, the evil that's change, you know, evil, but the thing that's coming is good or bad. You know, what if we make it like an elephant, like a large elephant, and all it's doing is walking across the forest and eating the trees because it needs to sustain itself. And we're just ants, like looking up at this monster, screaming, you know? So of course, from our perspective, it's a monster. But from the elephant, it's just trying to get from point A to point B and sustain itself. You know, it's natural. It's a natural progress. So that was, I felt, what I have matured in some way of seeing change, rather to just face it with anger, or to also look at it from a bigger point of view, you know, and to find the hope in that once you accept it, that as a part of, maybe it's a part of the natural progress, you know.
And I mean, this film is built with these performers going into their reality, into their place. So you're building their experiences as actors coming out of that. How do you, like, all these lovely little moments, and I mean on the small scale, like I'm thinking of, for example, I love the exchange when she goes and finds the man doing the mask changing, and that look that they share, or the old guy brushing his bald head in the mirror, like how those very little nuances, how did you work on them? Yeah, those things are just, you know, once you get into the process of making the film, you know, my job is to create the dramaturgy of the arc. And then the little details, you know, you kind of like, you bring all these collaborators in, costume designers, your improv, you know, your acting coach for the thing, and that, you know, the comb that you saw, it was just like, I think they were joking around, you know, and then like, then the old guy picks up a comb and sort of combing, and because the crew was so delirious, they started laughing really hard, and somebody showed me a video, and I thought, let's put that in the film, that's funny, you know, and I think it's just like,
even in the editing, you're trying to make each other laugh. If you can, like, it's almost like a sick process because sometimes we're telling such emotional stories, but we're like, if you can make each other laugh, that's always a good thing, So I feel like those are the discoveries. I mean, that's why you make your films 3 times and film is alive, right? So as open as you can to the real. I mean, my favorite filmmakers are Abbas Kiarostami, Werner Herzog. I feel like those are the filmmakers that are really like, they're like open wounds, of like, and they just suck up everything that is real and natural. And yeah, you might not, in the beginning, you might not see how does that a part of the film, but it all becomes a part of the film, it just magically does, So I think that it's always a feeling. Sometimes you're not sure how this connects to the actual story, but I mean, the worst that you can do as a director is to be just closed-minded and be a Nazi director, But the more you can be open to your collaborators, to what the weather offers you, and to what you see, and being like, oh, that's interesting, but not be like, oh, but that's not my film, but like, oh, that's interesting. Oh yeah, let's see, just to kind of work with it. That's when you can create something really kind of, like different and interesting. I think that's sort of.
I also really like the disruptive element of like the dwarf.
Yeah.
Just jumping around and leading the character.
Yeah, that wasn't in the original script. That was something we saw in a show, like, 3 weeks before production, and then I saw this little dwarf character on the stage. When from behind, looked like a rock, but from in front, kind of, and I just had this image of like, it would be really funny because we had this scene where Zhao Li was driving in a truck, the thing. I thought it would be really funny if they just passed a bus stop with normal Chinese like farmers, and then this one guy who just like looks like a rock and then turns around and it's like a dwarf, right? Like, it just made me laugh. So how do it doesn't make any sense in the film, but yet we were you make it more organic in it, and so that's kind of funny, so that's how we figured out our way around this film. So the more experience you have with filmmaking, the more you can be open to the experience, and I think I'm excited for the next stage, because you can only make a first film once, and that first film is so raw, so rough, it's full of flaws, but that is the energy of a first feature. Every film after that has a different type of energy. So a second film, is something that you try to do, and you try to, essentially kind of, most people, it's like, can, from the outside of the audience, it's like, oh, we like this first one, can you do it again? Is that a fluke, And then so you try to do it as fast as you can, and I wanted to do something that was so different than Old Stone, because I was getting so many genre scripts, that were like thrillers, the Hollywood world, they love the Old Stone, but I wanted to make something completely different. So now I can take a little break and be excited, because I think nobody can know what I have next, because I can make it anything, I mean, who knew I was going to make a Ozu musical? Because that's what that's what I did, I think,
Okay, well, looking forward to that.
Hey, this is Eric from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.